Hello there and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Al24 News, streaming live from the capital Algiers, and coming up next in our news program. Russian attacks on the Ukrainian capital Kiev have been met with severe resistance, as the Ukrainian military says in a Facebook post on Saturday that an army unit managed to repel Russian forces near its base on a major city street. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky released a self-shot video from central Kiev on Friday, going alongside key aides to stay and defend the capital against the Russian military action. Tens of thousands of people have fled Ukraine since the start of Russia's military operation. The United Nations has said, warning that the violence could trigger a wave of up to 5 million refugees fleeing toward neighboring countries. Russia voted a draft UN Security Council resolution on Friday that would have deplored Moscow's military action on Ukraine, while China abstained from the vote, a move Western countries view as a win for showing Russia's international isolation. Hello again and welcome to Al24 World Latest. Moscow massed more than 150,000 troops on Ukraine's borders and launched a barrage of missile, artillery and air attacks. Ukraine's death toll hits 137, with 1,360 wounded, with Russian troops also killed. Ukraine's defense ministry said on Friday that more than 1,000 Russian servicemen had been killed so far in the Ukrainian conflict. At least 3 children killed as conflict escalates, and 2 teachers were also reported killed when a missile struck in a school in Grafovka in eastern Ukraine. At least 120 people have been killed in the escalating violence, according to the media reports, with the UN reporting at least 25 civilian deaths and more than 100 injuries in the past 24 hours. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky posted a video on Twitter where he has appeared outside his office in Kiev, telling the public not to believe false reports and pledging to fight as Russia's forces which stormed toward the capital.
Всім доброго ранку, українці.
Good morning to all Ukrainians. There is a lot of fake information on the internet now, saying I'm calling for our army to lay down its arms and that an evacuation is underway. Well, I'm here. We will not lay down any weapons. We will defend our state, because our weapon is our truth. Our truth is that this is our land, our country, our children, and we will defend all this. That's what I wanted to tell you. Glory to Ukraine.
Слава Україні!
And for more details over the situation in Ukraine's capital, I'm joined by Vasyl Filipchuk, who is a Ukrainian foreign policy and international matters expert. Mr. Vasyl, hello there, how are you?
Yes, hello. I would like to say good, but it cannot be really good.
Mr. Vasyl, the West and US are saying that they are not going to interfere in Ukraine, despite their promises before this military operation. You, as an expert in this diplomacy field, as well as a Ukrainian national, what is your observation in this regard?
You know, no one believed it was going to happen. Any analysis, cost-benefit analysis, showed that it would be not just stupidity, it would be tragic, horrible mistake for Russia to do. So no one of us really believed anything like this would happen. Otherwise, it would be a tragedy, the biggest tragedy of 21st century. And unfortunately, Russia's decided to do it. Now it's basically not more important to discuss what was done better, wrong, what were calculations. There is no explanation for this crime. It's a horrible crime. Only beginning of Second World War can be compared to what happened. Only Hitler miscalculation when he started attack on Poland in 1939 can be compared to what Putin did last Thursday, starting attack on Ukraine. We see now how fully-fledged, full-scale war is unfolding, with thousands of tanks invading to Ukraine, encircling Kyiv, with using missile. Imagining usage of missile against Kyiv by Russia, it's really unthinkable. It's really the most horrible thing one could imagine. So we are now at the beginning of really serious conflict. I see that our army is rather strong and is able to withstand Russian invasion. We see that the whole nation, people are getting arms, Kalashnikovs, Molotov cocktails, and on every street they will be met with horrible resistance. I think Russians will lose thousands and thousands of people, and cost which they will pay for invading Ukraine will be horrible. They will never be accepted. They never will be welcomed. Whomever they appoint as their puppet government, it never will be recognized by Ukrainians. The sooner they leave, the better for them.
Mr. Philip, I beg your pardon, I'm sorry to cut your train of thoughts, but based on the statistics given, President Zelensky expressed his readiness for opening a dialogue talk with Vladimir Putin, Russia's president, saying that probably we will have a diplomatic solution now. Do you think that this will really happen after this military operation, after this killing?
Well, peace always comes after war. Now I see that both sides are increasing stakes. Our side will never accept surrender. Our side will never accept giving up weapons. So the only possible discussion can be about NATO accession neutrality. In any case, what we just also witnessed, NATO is not going to defend Ukraine. NATO can, in the best case scenario, help us with arms. So it's also a kind of waking up for Ukraine to see that in reality we can rely only on our army. But we are 42 million nation. We have strong army and we can defend ourselves. So the sooner diplomacy will start, the better for Ukrainian nation, for Russia and Ukraine. So whether Putin would accept something like neutrality status and new security guarantees for Ukraine and stop basically it's possible, but only after Russians will see some days more of their defeat around Kyiv. So I think proposal is there, and whether sides would start depends on how much Russians would be killed in Ukraine over upcoming days.
Mr. Philip, do you think that after this, let me say, between inverted commas, Ukraine was cast away, do you think that the European Union will stay united after this military operation?
I think it was wake-up call for everyone, for Ukrainians and also for Russians with a healthy mind, not for those who started this terrible invasion, but also for Europe. They are rethinking a new world and new realities in which we are. I see that they are ready to accept Ukrainian refugees, women and children who left Ukraine and are looking for safe shelter. I see that there is real readiness to insert sanctions against Russia and exclusion Russia from financial system, stopping energy trade with Russia, basically creating Russia in something like North Korea, isolated state. Is an option which we favor and which Europe, I hope, will undertake in upcoming days. Whether they would be able to make some more important and radical decisions like proposing Ukraine membership in the European Union or not, it's a big question. I'm not sure they would be able to go so far. This would significantly increase and improve Ukraine situation. But at least three issues which Europe can do, they are able and they will do. These three issues, I mean, first of all, providing Ukraine with military help. Second, providing Ukrainian refugees with shelter. And third, sanctions and increasing pressure on Russia, just even up to stopping diplomatic relations with this country, which allowed such a horrible crime.
Mr. Philip Chok, thank you so much for this clarification. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Ukraine's president urged residents to take up arms as heavy fighting raged around the capital. Ukraine military says it's repelled Russian troops' attack on Kiev's military base. Russia has voted a UN Security Council resolution calling it to withdraw from Ukraine. Spokesperson says Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is ready to discuss ceasefire and peace with Russia. United States says it will sanction Russia President Vladimir Putin and Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov. Russian forces are advancing toward Ukraine's capital Kiev as they continue their assault on the country. Putin calls for Ukraine's military to remove the country's government from power. On the other hand, UN says more than 50,000 Ukrainians have fled to other countries since the fighting started. As expected, voted a UN Security Council resolution on Friday that deplored in the strongest terms the country's aggression against Ukraine and demanded to immediate withdrawal of its troops. Osama Ayadi has more to tell.
In an unsurprising move, Russia has vetoed the UN Security Council resolution that demands Moscow cease its military action on Ukraine borders and withdraw all troops. The Russian Federation, while 11 of the Council's 15 members voted in favor of the text, China, India, and the United Arab Emirates abstained. A no vote from any one of the 5 permanent members of the Council stops action on any measure put before it. The body's permanent members are China, France, Russian Federation, the United Kingdom, and the United States.
The United Nations was born out of war to end war. Today, that objective was not achieved. But we must never give up. We must give peace another chance. Soldiers need to return to their barracks. Leaders need to turn to the paths of dialogue and peace.
The Security Council's latest attempt to end the Ukrainian crisis caps a week of activity at the United Nations seeking a diplomatic off-ramp to Russian military action in the country, including near-daily press takeouts by the Secretary-General, 3 emergency council sessions, and 1 meeting of 193-member General Assembly, which saw speaker after speaker call for de-escalation. The General Assembly held a similar vote in 2014, condemning Russia's seizure of Crimea, which obtained 100 votes in support. Moscow had earlier vetoed the Security Council resolution condemning its actions in Crimea. 13 countries supported it, with China abstaining.
In reaction to President Vladimir Putin's decision to invade, U.S. Vice President Joe Biden and his NATO counterparts decided Saturday to send tens of thousands of troops backed by air and naval support to protect members between Russia and Ukraine. Islam Seed.
In a response to a large-scale incursion of Russia over Ukraine, the NATO and the West pledged to send more troops including land, air and naval support to its allies in Ukrainian soil. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg did not give any details about the number and the placement of troops that will be deployed.
Today, the North Atlantic Council decided to activate our defense plans at request of our top military commander, General Todd Walters.
The NATO response force is estimated to be up to 40,000 troops. However, Stoltenberg said he would not be deploying the entire force. The declaration came after NATO members counter Estonia and Bulgaria prompted urgent meeting about their security within fears from the Russian military operation.
This is a prudent and defensive step to protect and shield allied nations during this crisis. And it will enable us to deploy capabilities and forces, including the NATO response force, to where they are needed.
According to officials, a few of NATO's member countries are supplying Ukraine with weaponry, ammunition and other equipment, but NATO as a whole body is not. It will not take any military action to defend Ukraine, which is a close ally but has no chance to be a NATO member. The Baltic members, however, have said that the West should send more support to Ukraine, including humanitarian aid. NATO has also activated an emergency planning system in the short term to allow commanders to move forces swiftly. In addition to 5,000 already deployed troops, the Pentagon said on Thursday that will send 7,000 troops to Europe.
And to talk more about Europe's reaction and response to this Russian attack over Ukrainian lands. I'm joined live by Mr. Ziad Sanjari, live from Austria's capital, Vienna, who is an author and journalist as well as a strategic analyst. Mr. Ziad, hello over there.
Hello, welcome.
Vladimir Zelensky, Ukraine's president, said that he feels really disappointed after his country was left alone to face the Russian forces after he was promised to have all the needs his country would ask for. So, Mr. Ziad, why couldn't Europe agree on one solution on how to deal with the Ukraine crisis?
Yes.
Mr. Ziad, my question was why Europe couldn't agree on one solution, one strategic to face this Ukraine crisis.
نعم، تحية طيبة. أعتقد بأن الوضع والمخاوف الآن من الملف الأوكراني وتداعياته كبيرة على أوروبا خاصة وعلى الشرق الأوسط بصورة عامة. يبدو بأن الاتجاه نحو التصعيد والدخول إلى كييف قريبا وخلال 24 ساعة القادمة، يعني بطريقة أو بأخرى هناك موجة نزوح وموجة هجرة كبيرة ستحدث من أوكرانيا ولربما الاتحاد الأوروبي من أكثر الدول المتضررة من هذه المسألة. كذلك نقص إمدادات الطاقة.
The ammunition of gas and petroleum. Europe, we see that Europe is basically dependent on the Russian gas that passes through Ukraine and perhaps a few European countries, which is quite clear. This ammunition of gas and supply of gas will be reduced. So the repercussions are bigger, especially that the situation developed further, which will take another curve, and the escalation will be quite bigger and more serious over this crisis. So there will be a global instability. It's not just over Europe. The repercussions will be over the Middle East as well, especially that many Arab countries such as Egypt, who depend mainly on wheat that comes from Russia, and Ukrainian one as well. So this war and its repercussions will have a very negative impact on the global economy, and it will be quite obvious, especially on neighboring countries such as Russia. Basically, in the Chernobyl, the resistance will be escalated, or the repercussions will be on multiple levels. There will be other countries that will suffer the consequences of this war. So the whole world is watching, and leaders are careful as to whether to respond quickly and implement the right measures. So any hour, any moment from that.
Mr. Ziad, I'm sorry to cut your train of thoughts. I beg your pardon, but all what has been done till now, only some sanctions was imposed by the Europeans and US. But can we say these sanctions will give us and provide us with the final solution to this crisis?
Unfortunately, there isn't a quite clear answer to this question. What's happening right now is a big problem, and the repercussions of which are going to take a toll on security and economy, and the repercussions are going to have a very serious impact on the neighboring countries and on refugees, especially Austria, that is receiving refugees in Vienna. this is in fact, or what is happening in fact right now, is just a beginning of a serious crisis that the whole Europe will suffer from, especially that Ukraine was left alone to face its fate. The logistic support that was delivered to Ukraine did not meet the promises that European leaders provided to Ukraine. And especially after they have requested to join NATO, among so many other promises that were given to the President of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people at the beginning of this
for last
war.
point, Ukraine was promised to have some countries to stand with, but when the military action happened, no one was there for Ukraine. Do you think after this military operation, can we see a united EU in the coming years?
I don't think so. NATO and Europe as a whole are not going to take any military action anytime soon. Perhaps there is going to be some logistic supply and ammunition. The United States had several statements escalating the situation. Nevertheless, whenever the situation got tense or more tense, the Ukrainian people and Ukrainian president got reassured that they are alone. They were promised military backup, ammunition, logistical supplies, but nothing was seen on the ground. And this has become a real fact on the ground, especially after Zelensky witnessed that everyone is giving up on him. Ukraine is on the verge of a real crisis that just was sparked a few days ago. Nevertheless, it's quite sure it's not going to end anytime soon.
Mr. Ziad, thank you so much for this clarification.
The results of this crisis is going to take a toll on the whole political scene and the global community.
Mr. Ziad, thank you so much for this explanation. I was joined live by Mr. Ziad from Austria's capital, Vienna. Thank you so much. On the other hand, Ukrainian officials said Russian forces fired cruise missiles from the Black Sea at Mariupol, also in the southeast, as well as Sami in the northeast and Poltava in the east. Kiev authorities said a missile hit a residential building and another hit an area near the airport. It has been estimated by the United Nations that about 100,000 Ukrainians have already been displaced as a result of the Russian incursion, and that number could ultimately grow millions. It is expected that Western Europe will face with a huge migrant crisis again, but this time it's opening its door to host Ukrainians. Miriam Zian.
From the first day of the Russian military operation, residents in Kiev took shelter in the metro and tried to leave the city, while cars filled with families fled the capital, making a massive traffic jam. After many people fled on Thursday, the center of Kiev, a metropolis that normally has some 3 million inhabitants, looked like a ghost town. Rare passersby stepped to exchange the latest news, while sirens and explosions were heard under a cloudy sky. The military operation has thrown thousands of Ukrainians onto roads, who are flocking to the EU's border, particularly in Poland, Hungary and Romania.
In my opinion, the sooner the Ukrainians surrender, the sooner the conflict will end. We can only hope for that. There is no other choice.
People are worried because they don't know when it's going to end. They expect even worse, so it's only just started, and everyone who can is fleeing, just like me.
At border crossings in Poland, Ukrainians arrived on foot, by car and train, and were greeted by Polish authorities and volunteers offering them food and hot drinks. According to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, around 100,000 people have fled their homes in Ukraine and thousands have left their country. The EU said it was fully prepared to welcome Ukrainian refugees. However, it is expected that Western Europe will witness another refugee crisis.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. The Alt24 news program is still rolling, so stay tuned for further details. Have a blessed evening.